All right, so we're going to look at fractions and decimals today and how to do subtraction with both of those. Excuse me. So we're going to start out with subtracting fractions, and before we get into word problems, we're just going to talk about a few basics. Okay. So our first problem here is -3/4 minus 5/8. So the first thing I want to do is I want to rewrite this as an addition problem. So I'm going to write -3/4 plus, and since this means the opposite of 5/8, I'm going to write it as -5/8. And there's my addition problem. Now from here, it is a little bit easier to see what I need to do. So we know from when we talked about adding rational numbers that we can't add fractions together until they have a common denominator. So what is the least common denominator that 4 and 8 have? So if I were to find multiples, Monica is saying 8. So 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 12. I'm not going to go out a few numbers. 16. This would be 8, 16, 24, 32. All right, so if I look, I can see that they have the multiple of 8 in common, and they also have the multiple of 16 in common. So which one is the least common multiple? Well, that's the one we see first, which would be 8. So I'm going to change -3/4 into 8ths. So what do I multiply 4 by in order to get 8? 4 times what equals 8? 2. There we go. So I multiply numerator and denominator by 2, and that's going to give me -6/8 plus -5/8. And now I can add these two numbers together. So my denominator stays the same. Both of them are negative, so we know it's going to be a negative answer. And I add the top. 6 plus 5 gives me 11. And I can leave it as -11/8 if it says in the problem that that is okay. Or I can simplify this down into a mixed number and get -1 and 3/8. Any questions about that problem? Okay. All right, let's look at a decimal. -7.38 minus -6.2. Now we learned last week that if I have minus a negative, that this is two negatives, and that means we're going to do the opposite or add the opposite of 6.2. So we're going to add positive 6.2 because two negatives make a positive. So -7.38 plus 6.2. Two negatives make a positive, so now we have a positive 6.2. So if I were to draw a number line, all right, here's 0. Let's say this is -7.38. If I add 6.2, am I going to get more negative or more positive? Which way am I going to go? To the left or to the right? Right. We're going to get more positive because we're adding a positive number. So we're actually going to go to the right towards 0. Okay. So if we add 6.2 here, I'm going to figure out the difference between these. So if well, no, I'm not going to do an absolute value. Sorry. So I'm going to ignore this negative for a second, and I'm going to subtract just the two numbers. Minus 6.2. And since 7.38 is negative, my answer is also going to be negative. So my answer is negative 1.18. Any questions about that? Okay. Oh. Good morning, Alexis. See if anyone else came. Oh, and good morning, Samuel. All right. Let's look at some word problems. To qualify to compete in the high jump finals, athletes must jump a certain height in the semifinals. Clarissa jumped 2.83 inches below the qualifying height, and I just drew through the number. Oh well. But her friend Annika made it to 1 in 5. Let me start over. Clarissa jumped 2 3/8 inches below the qualifying height, but her friend Annika made it to 1 5/6 inches over the qualifying height. How much higher was Annika's semifinal jump compared with Clarissa's? So the first thing we want to figure out is what sign, positive or negative, goes with each of these numbers. So let's say the qualifying height is 0. 2.38 inches below the qualifying height, would that be positive or negative if it's below the qualifying height? Right. So this is going to be negative 2 3/8 inches. 1 5/6 inches over, is that going to be a positive or a negative? Right, this is going to be a positive. So I don't have, it's not going to be exact, but 2 and 3, or negative 2 3/8, this would be 1, this would be 2. So negative 2 3/8 would be about here. Positive 1 5/6 would be almost 2. So 1 5/6. And we want to know how much higher Annika, this would be Annika, was than Clarissa. So I want to know what is 1 5/6. Let me start over. Sorry, guys. I'm having a little bit of a brain fart moment right now. So we want to know, I'm going to go 2 3/8 plus another 1 5/6 to get here. Okay. So really, I'm looking at the the distance between these, okay? So 1 and 5, 6. Minus 2 and 3/8. Okay? Because we want to know the distance between those two numbers. Minus negative. Oh my goodness. I tell you what, this is what happens when I don't get a lot of sleep, kids. All right, so plus a negative, or plus, or double negative plus a positive. So let's change these numbers into improper fractions. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 5 is 11, plus 16 19/8. All right, can I add these two numbers together as is? No. We need to change them to common denominators. And what is a common denominator they both have? Or what is a common multiple? 24. So if I want to change 6 to 24ths, what do I multiply by? All right. And if I want to change 8ths to 24ths, I multiply by 3 times 3. So this would be 44 24ths plus 57 24ths. And now I can add those together. So 57 and 44 would give me, let's see here, that'd be 11 plus 101 24ths. And 101 24ths would be 4.2. What's here? 4. Okay, hold on here, y'all. That is 4 times 24, 96. Okay, so 4 and 5 24ths. Okay. So Ariel, since it wants to know how much higher the jumps or Annika was than Clarissa, we want to know how far is it from here to here. So we are looking at the difference between these two. So that's the 1 and 5/6 minus negative 2 and 3/8. So it's the absolute value that you did on Friday. We want to know the total distance between these two numbers. Does that make more sense? How did I get 3? Oh, so when I converted to common denominators, is that what you're asking about, Yariel? And Monica, I added because we were subtracting a negative. So I just changed this to plus a positive up here. Okay, because remember, 2 negatives make a positive. All right, so to know what to multiply, that's finding the least common denominator. So I'm looking at the multiples. So 6 times 1 is 6, 12, 18, 24. And if I do the same thing here, 8, 16, 24, and I can stop because that is the first number that they have in common, the first multiple that they have in common. Okay, so I know that 1, 2, 3, 6 times 4 gives me 24, and 1, 2, 3, 8 times 3 gives me 24. So that's where those numbers came from, Yariel. Okay. Any other questions about this one? Okay. Let's move on to the next one. The highest mountain in the world is Mount Everest, whose peak is 29,029 feet above sea level. So if it's above sea level, is that going to be a positive or a negative? Right, it's going to be a positive because it's above sea level. But the tallest mountain is Mauna Kea. The base of Mauna Kea is 19,669 feet below sea level, and its peak is 33,465 feet above its base. How much higher above sea level is Mount Everest than Mauna Kea? All right, this is going to be a two-step problem. So the first thing I want to plot is where Mount Everest peak is above sea level. So I went ahead and labeled the number line, and instead of doing like 29,000, I just did from this number here. So 20 is actually 20,000. 30 is 30,000, okay? So we know 29,029 feet above is going to be over here close to the 30. So this, I'm going to put ME for Mount Everest. Okay. So we know that is Mount Everest, and that it is 29,029 feet. Mauna Kea's base is 19,669 feet below sea level. So is that going to be a positive number or a negative number? All right. So I'm going to go this way, and I know it's not going to be more than 20,000. So this is going to be Mauna Kea base, which is 19,669, and it's a negative. I'm going to focus on just this sentence right here. Actually, okay, change to the highlighter. Do we know from this sentence, the base of Mauna Kea all the way to 33,465 above its base, do we know where the peak of Mauna Kea would be on the number line yet? We do not. All we know is that it is 33,465 feet above this point. So how am I going to figure out where it is located? What do you think? What am I going to do with this number and this number? Very good, Nathan. All right, so we're going to take that 19, the negative 19,699, and we're going to add to it 33,465, because how far above the 19,000 669 the peak is. So what is negative 19,669 plus 33,465? What number do you get? $13,796. So the peak of Mauna Kea is going to be about here. So here's Mauna Kea's peak, which is at 13,796. Excuse my chicken scratch. All right, so now we can use this number and this number here to answer the question. How much higher above sea level is Mount Everest than Mauna Kea? So what am I going to do with 13,796 and 29,029? We're going to subtract. So 29,029 minus 13,796 will give me my answer. So 9 minus 6 is 3. I can't take 9 from 2, so I'm going to come all the way over here. It's going to become an 8, 9, 12. 12 minus 9 is 3. 9 minus 7 is 2, 5, and 1. So the peak of Mount Everest is 15,233 feet higher above sea level than the peak of Mauna Kea. Any questions about that one? Okay. All right, let's talk about your assignments for today, because you have a few. All right, so the first thing, your warm-up today, if you have not done it yet, is a little different than what we normally do. Instead of doing a couple question quiz, you actually have a discussion question you're going to do, and it is called Which One Doesn't Belong? So on Which One Doesn't Belong, there is an image below with 4 different number lines. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it asks you, in your opinion, which number line does not belong with the others? Why do you feel that way? And what would you change about it to make it fit with the other 3? So there's 3 parts to this question I'm looking for. And then I'm also looking to see if I'm looking for a reply to at least one other student. Now, this is an opinion, so the only way you're really going to get it wrong is if you don't answer it. Okay. Then you have 2 Google files that you're going to do. The first one is just 2 slides long. Slide 1, you have 3 questions about this word problem. And then slide 2 wants you to just find the difference between these numbers, or the sum, either one, whatever it's asking for. And it tells you that if you need to rewrite subtraction problems as addition problems or use a number line to help you solve them, you can do that. And then the second one, the first slide wants you to model how to find the difference between these 2 numbers. And explain how it represents the addition problem. And then you have 4 word problems that you're going to complete. And I realized one of them is actually one we did together last Thursday. So if you remember this one right here, you should already know the answer to it. Any questions about your work for today? Okay. As always, this will be open until 10:15 if you need